All right, Marissa. Let me just see if we're all systems go here on our Facebook Live. I believe that we are. Welcome. It's so great to see you. I was just saying how professorial you look with your
Oh,
books
thank
in the
you so
background.
much. Yes, in the library.
Very fitting for someone with a PhD.
Yes, a
Yeah,
lot. Say I've read a lot of them. Maybe not all of them, but a lot.
nice. Oh, that's awesome. So, what is your favorite classic book? I was just listening to The Economist. They were talking about how book, especially the classics, is up significantly in Britain.
Yeah, I have to say, for classics, I'm actually a huge fan of Shakespeare.
Nice.
Um, so I would say Macbeth is probably my all-time favorite, which is
Cool.
funny. Yeah, and I just love everything about it. It was maybe the first work of Shakespeare I read in high school, and really enjoyed it. I just love the creepiness, the Scottish, the whole everything about it, and so that was a good entry into some of his other works as well. But yeah, I would say Macbeth is right up there.
Nice. Now, when you were doing your PhD in the UK, did you get to see any of Shakespeare's haunts? Did you go to like
I
Shakespeare's
did.
favorite pub?
Of course, yeah, there were a lot of pub visits, and I got to go to Stratford, and I got to go to the Globe in London, which was amazing, and in general, just kind of soak up all of that. So I got quite into it when I was over there. Yeah,
That's
the,
fun.
the
Yeah.
culture of all of those works, and certainly then to see some of the plays in those settings too,
Hmm.
just a really cool experience and brought a whole other element to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your background. And you did your PhD in the UK, but tell us a little bit about your career journey. As you know, we're planning to be, sharing this with recent grads, giving them tips, and it helps, I guess, to have been down these various paths.
Sure, yeah.
Your background.
So my, I guess, academic journey started when I attended Yale, and I graduated from Yale with a BA in history in 2005. So I had a great time there, and I studied history, and then history of medicine just a little bit, but mostly focused on colonial American history. Among other things. And then during my time at Yale, I took the opportunity to go abroad, and I went to Oxford for a semester my junior year, my junior spring, and absolutely fell in love with Oxford and the UK in general. So, and really, I grew up in rural Maine and hadn't done much traveling, and certainly no international traveling before that. So it just kind of opened up my whole world. Um, Absolutely loved it. Decided I wanted to do my postgraduate studies over there because I was kind of going in the grad school direction anyway. I came back to the US to finish my senior year at Yale, and then worked for 2 years as a healthcare consultant. I worked in disease management in Boston for a few years before going back to Oxford. So I kind of made the connections while I was over there as a junior, and done a bit of networking and found the person and actually the department I wanted to work with, which is the history of medicine department. So I went back and did a 1-year master's in history of science, medicine, and technology,
Mhm.
and absolutely loved every minute of it. Decided I wanted to do a PhD. Needed to take some more time out to find some funding and all of those kind of real world concerns, pay off some student loans. We jumped into the yachting industry. So I always like to say I love boats and I love history. And
And
there's some,
history of boats.
I'm sorry?
And history of boats.
And history of boats. Yeah, maritime history is fascinating. I should do more of that, actually, especially since I live in Newport now. There's plenty
Yeah.
of history there. So shipped out for a few years, but always with the intention of going back and doing the PhD. So I was able to go back in 2010 and then did a PhD in the history of medicine and specialized in the history of infertility in early modern England and colonial New England. So very happily was able to revisit some of my favorite sources in the history of medicine of, kind of the American colonial period too. So I was able to go back and forth and had a great time doing it. So that was my academic path, and then came back out of academia to work again in the yachting industry in a management role, but have always been far more interested in education and working with students. I taught while I was at Oxford. I was a tutor, as they call them. So you do a lot of working one-on-one with students on educational goals as well as subject matter.
So it would be something, but we would call it like a teaching assistant, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the Oxford tutorial system is something that they hold very dear, and it's something that's been around for hundreds of years. It's very small class, very focused. Usually you're working one-on-one with students, or maybe 1 to 2, or in the small class kind of environment, with supplemental lectures as well. But the real core teaching happens on one-to-one.
Cool. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you've used your experience in the maritime industry, right, to kind of support your aspirations and your goals in education, which I think is really smart and fascinating.
Yeah, it all worked out really well. It was a good balance, and really, it was all about goal setting for me. And when I came up against funding hurdles and just kind of financial hurdles in general, I was trying to embark on a PhD around the time of the economic crash of 2008. So a lot of kind of larger world challenges, which of course we're going through right now as well. And I'm sure some students probably feel like, a little bit out of control in terms of the events that are happening globally. But I guess I can say I was somebody who had maybe some bad timing in coming out of a degree and trying to embark on a new degree in the midst of economic upheaval. So, but I can say that where there's a will, there's a way, and you
Right.
will figure it out. And it's just a matter of maybe being a bit more creative in your approach.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and I have that experience too, because when I graduated, I graduated into a recession also. Not that one, earlier, but yeah, so I went to grad school and I got, I had an assistantship. I worked in student media and was the advisor to the student newspaper and the magazine, and had a really great experience, got my master's out of the way. But, I did incur a significant amount of debt. Luckily was able to pay that down and off, but I look back and say, was that really the best thing to do at the time? And I think we're all aligned, on the team for ROI&U, that this is very skills driven, right? And so is really designed to put you into employment so much faster. And it's interesting because we started out this series of Facebook Lives with Maya, who's just graduated, who's been interning for a while with me, and her experience. She just started grad school like last week. And some of the experiences, we talked to one of her classmates from University of Kentucky who's looking for a job and what that has been like. But we've also spoken with agency owners and digital marketing companies about the needs, and a lot of them have hiring freezes. They're trying to figure out what it looks like going forward. And I was thinking today, I went on a run and thinking about how what we're doing isn't just about getting students jobs. That's a piece of it, but another piece of it is the economic recovery. So it's workforce development. It's, digital marketing is a way that many businesses have been able to pivot and survive. But the agencies who are doing that only have so much bandwidth. So it's sort of a chicken or egg. It's like, okay, well, do we hire more people so we can serve more businesses? But is that sustainable? Like, what's going to happen in the next 6 months? We're still in that really strange time where we're not sure how this is all going to shake out. But on top of that, I think there are other agency owners. I have another interview coming up, and they have been hiring, but now they're having challenges with training, right? And so, do students have the skills that they need, or that she and her agency needs, and how much time can they reasonably dedicate to training? And so, this is what was really, everything is sort of gelling together in terms of, okay, well, what can we do? And I think you and Maya and myself came together and said, okay, well, knowing our particular skills and strengths, what can we do to bring us out and bring businesses and bring students out of this pretty seemingly dark time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the time is, as we've discussed many times, it's right now in terms of helping people to, number one, stay the course. If this is something that you're interested in, it might look a little bit different right now, or we might need to wait things out, but there's certainly things that you can do as a student in order to be proactive about your education and also your kind of career readiness as well. So I think this course is a perfect blend of those two. You're learning the critical kind of subject matter for digital marketing, which is an area that I've done a lot of learning about and continually impressed by, in whether it's learning metrics, SEO skills, and things like that. I think anybody who's even interested in starting a small business these days have to wrap their heads around the fact that this industry is not even quite emerging. It's just blowing up at an extraordinary rate. So there are those kind of subject matter skills, but then also the pieces that I find maybe equally critical in terms of learning to work collaboratively with a team, which is something that I know coming out of college, I learned in my first job. Different way to think about time management and deadlines, and listening to other people who maybe have different opinions than you do. And it's all kind of built into this course, which is a really great thing, I think, and certainly will serve the students well going forward, whatever they go into. And especially right now, it feels like something that can keep moving forward. You can keep marching forward with while everything seems suspended. And I think that's really important. The idea of forward momentum on a personal level is something that I think we all kind of grab onto during dark times of like, I know that I'm doing what I can do to improve my chances at a successful career, or even trying something that I haven't tried before. This is a kind of soft entry into it, which I really like.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because Joe Hearn, who owns a company that does a lot with digital marketing, he was saying, it's great to be on the beach. It's good for anxiety. But if you're not actively taking steps to increase your skills, figure out like where your shortcomings are. And one of the things we talked about was it doesn't really make sense for your college curriculum to be covering what we're covering because it all changes so fast. By the time a professor prepares the materials for the course, to the time that it actually happens, everything could have shifted, right? Like I just was on a call with a colleague today who was saying, hey, have you seen the new Facebook desktop, and why isn't this like this and this like that? And I'm like, I've mostly been using Facebook for my phone, so I gotta look into that. But yeah, I mean, just everything is changing so quickly that it doesn't make sense for a student who's spending a lot of money on their undergrad to be spending time focusing on things that are going to definitely be changed in a 3 or 4 year time span, for sure. There's no question. But I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, because I think the soft skills piece that we have built into this are really key, and being able to collaborate and communicate, especially remotely, right? Because this is all, the whole course is designed. There are in-person, live, like remote. We gotta like come up with the terminology for that, I guess.
Live, virtual.
Synchronous.
I
It's
keep
synchronous.
saying Zoom. Yeah, which is Zoom itself. I mean, it's funny. I'm part of a board in the yachting industry, and that was my first introduction to Zoom. It wasn't that long ago, and now the whole world seems to run on this platform, and even the idiosyncrasies attached to that. And I agree. So I would say live, virtual, but certainly face to face, maybe the best way to describe it, if virtual. And I think that's a big part of this course and a really important part of this course. And I think that kind of interaction right now is especially needed. So to give students that kind of connection to colleagues within the course, and then also access to experts who we've invited to be guest lecturers, I think is a really important and will be a very positive part of the experience. This
Yeah.
is how people are connecting these days. And I think the more comfortable people get with it, the more they'll take off and have creative ideas about how to expand. And certainly even being comfortable and being productive in this kind of format is certainly going to be attractive to future employers. It's
I
not
think,
the kind of thing right now where you can just bury your head in the sand and pretend that this all isn't changing as we speak. I mean, a lot of people have had to pick up these skills very quickly and pivot very quickly. So if you're on the forefront of that, it can only be a good thing.
yeah, and I think that, in any circumstances, right, there's always a shift, right? I call it young and dumb, right? There's just things that you just have not learned yet as far as like etiquette and culture and like what's acceptable in a classroom versus in a workplace. And especially it might be hard or confusing because if you're working from home, like what are the protocols for that? But Harvard Business Review has been doing some great programming on their podcasts about better meetings and how to engage better. And so, I'm constantly consuming all this content, right? So that we can build all these best practices into the course. And I think we already kind of had the fundamentals down, but it's just good. It's sort of like our Froyo video, right? Where you have like some sprinkles on top, like, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Oh, definitely. And it will be exciting to get everyone together to see, even throughout the course, how that further develops too.
Right.
And the idea of collaboration, I think, is huge. And I think a lot of people are feeling very isolated these days and almost siloed, and you get stuck in what you're doing alone. And so that's why to provide the opportunity to do group projects, if virtually, is really important. And I'm excited to see the real good
Yeah.
work that comes out of it.
Yeah. Well, this is a technique that I pulled from when I was in grad school. I did a PR project for an organ donor campaign in South Carolina. This is quite a while ago, but it was really great. The way it was formatted is somebody from the organization came in and spoke, and then we did a whole PR campaign. And I forget what it was. We had a specific target audience. I can't remember anymore. It's been a while. But so I've adopted that model, right, in all my semester-long courses and have worked with nonprofits. What's a little bit different about this is that but we're calling them worthy entities because they're not just nonprofits. They could be startups. They could be solopreneurs. And students will have awesome portfolio pieces out of this, right? And also the opportunity, like you said, to work with experts to have them review your work and elevate your work too, and to build out that network piece, because we have some great, just really good people who are successful. A lot of our instructors are international speakers at major conferences, and very well regarded in their industry, and they focus on that one thing, right? So students will be able to engage with that person. And I know for a fact that they're highly, highly personable and encouraging and have not just the expertise, but also the willingness to teach, which I think is really key.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think your network is incredible. Those I've been introduced to before. And it's that key part where they're willing to teach, they're willing to provide that constructive criticism. And I think it's really important for students to be ready to receive it as well. I mean, this is a huge opportunity, and exactly what it is like to work in an kind of a supportive environment or supportive institutions. So I think this would be a very positive experience for a student just starting out, and that you can try out some of these ideas and know that you have a listening audience and also an expert who's willing to engage with you on that level.
Yeah, and also just elevate your skills. That's how you learn. But as I like to say, in one of my roles as board president of C. Rose Montessori School, is we talk about positive problem solving, right? We don't really, there's a problem that exists, and yes, humanity often creates or is behind that problem. But what can we do? How everyone's doing the best that they can. So based on that assumption, how do we overlook, or yeah, I guess overlook. I mean, like blaming people is just a waste of time. It's like, this is the problem. Let's
Mhm.
work toward the solution together, and not, send people feeling bad about themselves, because I think, there's just no, especially in a creative field, there's no place for that, really.
Yeah, and the good stuff comes out of diversity of opinion too, and having those kinds of conversations. So one aspect of the course I'm really excited about is how we built in so much peer review. And I think that's really important because number one, it teaches you how to give and accept that kind of feedback, but also how to make small changes. And I think having worked well, certainly as a consultant, when you're giving suggestions all the time, looking at data, looking at kind of hard facts and creating stories out of it, that's a really important skill. So I think that's kind of built into this. And also just the, again, like feedback piece of it, the constructive criticism. So people looking critically at your work and wanting it, and you figuring out how to work with them to make the piece better. And I think that will be a very important and very like powerful experience for our students if they haven't experienced it before. And even if they have, they'll continue to elevate their skill set, certainly.
Yeah. And, also that Maya and I were just talking about group projects, and she was just mentioning that in her new career in grad school, that some of her classmates haven't done any research classes. And she says, yeah, sometimes I just need to like not talk about what I know. I'm going to end up doing the whole project. And that's the worst part about project work, right? But project work can be so great, when you're a bunch of willing participants, which is, this is coalition of the willing here, and really elevating one another and each other's skills, and working together to produce. And in the past, when I've taught this in semester-long classes, it works really, really well because the students are able to pick which nonprofit they're going to work for. So there's that alignment, there's that passion, and saying like, okay, well, this nonprofit can't afford this plan or these ideas. They don't have the resources. They're too busy doing what they do every day. So they're going to take my ideas and they're going to implement them. And I'm going to hand them a complete kit of, here are your posts, here's your editorial calendar, and you
Yeah.
know we can schedule these for you too. Is a great opportunity to build out your portfolio as a group. But then we transition into the sort of second phase is the internship piece. And so we're placing students into internships with, again, it's really supportive, mostly solopreneurs at this point, but also some digital companies, depending on, a match between the student and the company to make sure it's a good fit. But to be having the opportunity where you can really flex all your skills and create another additional portfolio piece that is all and so it's hard because when I first applied for my first real newspaper job, first full-time newspaper job, I came in with a pile of clips like this, and they were like, or no, I came in with a few clips, and they said, well, how do we know the copy desk just didn't rewrite this? And I like came in with my big stack, and I was like, I'm sure you'll be able to see some type of trends with the writing styles and know like this is actually my writing. And he was like, oh, okay. So just to show, you can master working in a group, but then you can also master working individually. And I think that's what's needed now.
I think very much so. And I think people to own their kind of area of expertise too. That's something that sometimes takes years. So I like to think this is kind of a condensed exercise in that, and identify what you're good at. And I'm excited to see how our groups interact to say, I'm the content person. I'm the visual aid person or something
Yeah.
like that, because everybody does have these different skill sets. And that's, again, something that will happen when they find placement in the working world as well. You will own what you're great at. You'll work on what you need development at. And it's the kind of magic that happens in that group setting. It reinforces your area of expertise, but also pushes you out of your comfort zone a little bit sometimes if you have to take on additional roles or realize the group dynamic.
Yeah, no, and I think it's great, to have the opportunity to stretch and reach, and just the collaboration piece is so fun, and also so important to working in today's workplace. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started a Montessori school is, like, this is just how learning is never going to stop. I mean, ongoing learning is going to be such a huge piece. And what do I need for my child to be successful in the future and to preserve that love of learning is the most important piece. She's 7, right? So we're talking building, like starting with those building blocks, but it's just so important. And I think everyone who's in digital marketing is constantly on podcasts and reading articles and going to conferences. So it's a huge piece, that ongoing education, and setting the tone, building out your network, getting the portfolio pieces, and showing employers, and at the end or midway through, we will be setting students up with interviews so that they can land those jobs, because that's just how hiring happens.
Yeah, it really does. Things have changed a lot. And I totally agree with you. The continuing education piece, to be curious in life is one of, I think, the most attractive things. Whether you're going to be a good employee or a partner or just kind of a global citizen, I think to be looking to understand new things, to be learning new skills is something that's very important. And especially now, I mean, we live in an amazing society and an amazing time in which you can really learn a ton if you want to. And you can seek out different courses, certainly, or just areas of knowledge or books. But I just think that information is coming to us in so many different ways now. And there's such an opportunity to grab onto it, whether it's going for a walk and listening to a podcast, or reading an ebook that is sent to you via email that you can read on your phone if you need to. It's all happening. It's just a matter of deciding what you're interested in, what you're curious about, and following through with it. And especially in an area like digital marketing, because as you said, it's changing so quickly. So these new platforms, I know I've learned a lot since working on the team with you and Maya. Maya is teaching me as much as we're, giving to her. So I think the opportunity is there just to grow and to expand your knowledge base. And that can only be a really, really positive thing, no matter what the future holds.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really the key, right? Is how does anyone, not just students, but how do you take this time to really catapult? When I left the Boston Globe, we were just entering into the Great Recession, and it was really hard to start a business. I had planned to start a business. I had left in the summer, and by fall, everything was hitting the skids. But what it did was it gave me time to learn digital marketing. I started out with search engine optimization, and then got into social, and then the metrics, and like all these pieces and parts are really key. So to really take the time, in a lot of ways, what looks like it could be a really frustrating time, students could be adapting, and by educating themselves, and even if that's just listening to the podcast or joining the Facebook lives or watching the videos after the fact, there's a lot to take away. And that's really the goal. When I program for marketing, I always am looking to give value. It's not just, oh, we're offering this thing. It's okay, well, where's the wisdom, where's the value, whether or not you buy or invest or what have you. Like, we want a positive experience. And so, for example, the tip cards that we do, and I loved your tip cards that you put together. So one of them is call on the people you know in your network who have experience in the area you're interested in exploring, and learn about how the upheaval of 2020 has affected their industry, which is so smart. And I think really important, right, as a great way to engage. So you're not calling somebody and saying, hey, I just graduated, and are there any jobs? You are entering into a conversation, and that's really important. And that's something that someone can engage with, as opposed to do this for me.
Right. Yeah. It's all about offering help. And sometimes help starts with figuring out what the problem is and if you can help and thinking creatively about it. And I think we're living through unprecedented times. Of course, as a historian of medicine, they're not that unprecedented. There's
Right.
in this lifetime, though, certainly. So that's been very interesting. It's been a very interesting time to be an historian of medicine, actually. But that being said, I've entered into conversations with people of like, how has this changed your life on a day-to-day level? Whether it's that now you're responsible for homeschooling your children for the first time, or that you're not going into the office, or you're not traveling 40% of your hours. And so those kinds of issues, but also what does this mean for the short term, but also the long term for different industries? What about jobs that supply offices with certain critical pieces of equipment or things like that? If offices are, a bit of a shaky ground right now,
Yeah.
Transportation, all of these things. I think certainly the pandemic has no doubt affected everyone in very, very kind of important ways, but everybody's a little bit different too. And I think there's a lot of opportunity where there is a lot of stress and upheaval. Therein lies in the cracks, the opportunity
Yes. Yeah.
to help too. I mean, certainly to explore new areas and maybe catapult yourself into something new and really exciting, but also there's a way of doing things differently. And if you're, again, at the forefront of having those kinds of thoughts or those kinds of engagements, you'll learn more quickly than others who are just kind of suspended in fear, to help each other, number one, and then also learn new things and make the most of this very unusual time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's hard as you're going through it. Like, I'll just give my own example of homeschooling, which was every single day a challenge. I mean, a complete struggle, but, I just figured out how to manage it. Right. And so then we just had Elise, got tested on literacy, which she had been a struggling reader, and she is 6 months ahead. So I was like,
Oh, yes, good work.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
great.
and the whole time though, I was thinking, this is not working. This is not working. This is not working. And, it's just like one foot in front of the other, in front of the other. And, and it's no, I think our teachers did an amazing job to be supportive. But as she said, I'm good at school. I'm not good at homeschooling.
Ah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
then she would say, you're not my teacher. And I mean, what do you say to that? Like, yes, that's accurate. So anyway, I'm happy she's back at school. We have a safety team in place who's been, researching. We have an epidemiologist who works with the CDC, leading, co-leading our team. We are, I believe, as safe as we possibly can be. And she's back and she's loving it. And she got to pick out fabric for her masks, and she's so excited to wear a mask. She has to pick out which one she wants to wear every day. And it's, you have to look beyond the day-to-day challenges and look toward the longer term goals, and, putting one foot in front of the other and taking positive steps will carry you through. And I think if you don't do that, right, what you see is the reports, and I think we've sent out links to this and alluded to this in blog posts, that students who graduate into a recession usually are taking 10 years to catch up with peers who haven't. Mm-hmm. So it really, in my experience, and I think in yours too, like, it makes sense to, like, don't be loafing or figuring things out for too long. Make a positive decision to move yourself into a direction that's going to get you down the field longer term, because time is even more critical now than in a normal time.
I completely agree. And I think, again, in unusual years or years in which things are happening that you have no control of, you're still waking up every day, and you still have a purpose. And it takes, I think, actually therein, lies resilience. Certainly, if you had to pivot quickly and make a new plan, I'm the first to say, I never thought my journey through academia would involve shipping out for 2 years and working part-time for 4 years on a boat, but it made the experience that much richer because I appreciated it. And when I was back, and I always say, in the long hours of a PhD when you're trying to pull together chapters and write through a night or something like that. It's pulling back on those experiences or looking back and going, I really wanted this because I went through all of that for this. And it just builds your resilience. It builds your strength. I had a whole army of people behind me kind of pushing me forward by that point. And it just took a little bit of, I guess you could say, creative thinking and doing things differently because the situation demanded it. And it was all the richer for, and I'm all the richer for it. So
Right.
yeah, I agree. I think, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say resilience. And then also when you're talking about this, I wonder if resilience is really the catchphrase, or we should be talking about perseverance.
Could be perseverance. Yeah, I like that. The classic when the going gets tough scenario, because it does. And
Resilience
so
is
many
kind of what
too.
happens to you, but perseverance is how you push through, right? Like how do you move beyond?
Yep, definitely. And make the most of a challenging situation. But again, challenges show up in all different forms, in pandemics or health crises or family situations, and it's just a matter of how you deal with it and how you push through. And certainly during transition times, that's something that I'm particularly interested in because I work with students on setting educational goals and navigating through these very important times of transition, whether it's high school to college or college to internship and then first jobs. There's a lot of uncertainty, and certainly right now we're living with a lot of uncertainty. So it's how you, as you said, put one foot in front of the other. You make a plan, but it's a flexible plan, and it has the opportunity to shift slightly whatever the circumstances that arise are.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, I mean, if anything, everybody's going to look back at this time and say, like, they got to have at least one or two great stories.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think as a society, we've created a bunch.
I know, right. Or at least some good memes.
Yes, exactly. A lot of good memes.
The quarantini.
Yes.
Well, Marisa, thank you so much. This is always enlightening and upbeat and awesome to collaborate with you. We couldn't have done this without you and all your expertise. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm really excited about the course. It's been, so great to work on it and to work with you and Maya and kind of live what we're teaching, which is collaboration, different opinions, different ideas, and different backgrounds all coming together to make a product that we're all really proud of.
Yeah. We just can't wait to get some students into it and get started. So yeah, wrap up your summer mode.
Yep.
Let's get to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've talked about this too, something about the change of the season. September is upon us. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get going.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. All right. Well, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Talk to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.